I am delighted to actually welcome you, Professor Kimani Njogu. Professor Kimani Njogu, you'll start with us. You'll start us off, and then we will move from there. 6 minutes, and we'll judiciously show you what time it is.
Thank you very much, John, for the opportunity. Now, the topic that we're discussing is extremely important to me, personally, for a number of reasons. First of all, to say that as we are working towards the discussions about constitutional reform, and I took the liberty of translating the former constitution into Kiswahili. Since then, of course, we've done lots of work. Let me just also indicate that there is a version of the Senate Standing Orders that I would like to say, yes, we do have a word for riparian in Kiswahili. You can say pembezoni mwa mto, which is still all right. You know, we depend substantially on various sources of law to our languages. There was a jurisprudence that existed before colonialism, but that was curtailed. And British colonialism and Portuguese colonialism, so that with the Arab colonialism, of course, you introduce Islamic jurisprudence within certain sections. It's important to appreciate that by its very nature, the language of law seeks precision and detail. And in the pursuit of that precision, they want to explain something in a lot of words. The maximum of brevity does not necessarily use the elaborated code other than the restricted code, which is much more precise. The other challenge that we encounter when you don't pay attention to issues of language is the development of, let me say, a stifling of the conceptual frame for legal discourse and legal engagement, so that you have two worldviews. You have the world of the lawyer, which is developed, has developed a worldview, a conceptual world, which is not shared beyond the courtroom and beyond those that actually study law. And therefore, you have a challenge of communication. You have a challenge of communication. If you look again at who actually seeks justice in our courts, in most cases, 80% of those people are people with very minimal proficiency in English. And therefore, necessity, paying attention to African languages and paying attention to Kiswahili and paying attention to the language of communication other than just language of engagement amongst peers and so on is critical. And that calls for a simplification, in my view, of legal discourse. I don't think that we need to get to a point where we use all the archaic expressions in the contemporary world. I think that there is time now to decolonize the legal language so that it's much more responsive to the context. The training that is offered. Is it possible, for example, to have a semester of of Kiswahili for lawyers? Very, very specific programming. Is it possible to start rewriting, our laws so that they are much more communicative? I like the Constitution. I like the current version of the Constitution. Those of you who read the previous Constitution know that it was absolutely opaque. This is much more friendly, and yet the laws coming out of it are not as precise. There is, of course, the other issue related to the interaction between spoken language and written language. The language of most of our African jurisprudence actually is spoken language. It's very transparent. One could talk about transparency of our languages. But the written language that you find in contracts and judgments and so on is really, really opaque. Therefore, we need to look to do some work around there. Legal interpretation and translation, we need to do a lot of training around that space so that we can have quality interpretation and professional interpretation. I think we need to invest in forensic linguistics for purposes of providing analysis, speech analysis, as well as textual analysis in the courts. And that investment is not a very difficult investment. It's just a matter of, introducing textual and speech analysis in the law school and so on. So thank you very much for the opportunity.